Live from the campus of Penn State University, this is PSN News. It's Wednesday, March 16th. We have all you need to know about a new museum coming to the campus, another grocery store, addition to State College.
We also have more on the case of Gabby Petito, along with entertainment, sports, and weather. Stay tuned.
Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Aidan Torok.
And I'm Abby Chachoute.
It has nearly been 3 years since the death of Osaze Osagie. This week, to honor Osagie, the 320 Coalition is holding 7 days of action titled 3 Cops, 3 Years, and 3 Shots. Osaze Osagie was a 29-year-old black man that was killed by 3 State College police officers, serving him a mental health warrant. Osagie was diagnosed with autism and schizophrenia. Officer M. Jordan Penojek allegedly shot Osagie after he ran down the hallway with a knife. None of the officers have been charged. In November of 2020, Sylvester Osagie, the father of Osaze, filed a lawsuit against the Borough of State College. The court date is scheduled for some time this year. The 7 days of action will end this Saturday with a Compliancy Kills protest at 1 p.m. at State College Allen Street gates.
A grand jury indicted Jose William Perez Felipe and Wilbur Sori San Miguel this past Thursday with counts of conspiracy to sell stolen property. The Kentucky men are currently facing charges for allegedly stealing $90,000 worth of catalytic converters. 6 converters were stolen from vehicles in 2 State College businesses and Penn State. According to the indictment, the men traveled from their home state to New York to sell a total of 30 stolen catalytic converters. The pair's arraignment was scheduled for today.
A brand new anthropology museum is set to open at Penn State in 2024. The $100 million project will start this August. The current anthropology museum is accessible by appointment only and resides in 3 converted classrooms on the 2nd floor of the Carpenter Building. The new museum is set to be in the Susan Welch Liberal Arts Building. This makeover is said to allow for better display casework, easier to read descriptions, and will result in more of an online presence.
Aldi has confirmed that the grand opening of their 2nd State College store is set for March 24th. The store is located at Nittany Mall at 780 Benner Pike. The 12,000 square foot building will open with 20 to 25 employees. Aldi Saxonburg Division Vice President J.R. Perry said the store aims to make the shopping experience easier for customers around the nation by giving each store a similar design and a layout that is easy to navigate. After a few days of sunshine and warm temperatures, there might be some rain ahead. Gracie Eckerly has this week's weather report after the break.
Happy Wednesday, everyone. I'm Gracie Eckerly with your week's weather forecast. Today, I hope you all enjoyed the beautiful weather. Tonight, we're looking forward to temperatures around 50 degrees, and we've got partly cloudy skies and a bit of humidity, which we haven't had in a while. The winds are gentle at around 5 miles an hour tonight. Taking a look at your St. Patty's Day weather forecast, 9 a.m. for those early classes. As you're walking out the door, it's going to be around 40 degrees, and then around lunchtime, it's going to warm up to about 52. And then look at this, a beautiful 60 degrees at 5 p.m. If you're looking to get outside, it's going to be the perfect time. All right, and then taking a look at this weather, the weekend, spring-like temperatures are going to stick through the end of the week, but you are going to have a bit of a humid Friday that turns into a bit of rain that night and then rain in the morning on Saturday. Winds are going to stick around 10 miles an hour for this weekend as well. All right, and then taking a weekend at the 7-day weather forecast. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday are all looking to be in the 60s, absolutely beautiful and partly cloudy every day with the lows around the mid-30s to 40s. All right, and then when we take a look at Saturday and Sunday, your weekend is looking a little bit rainy on Saturday, actually. It gets down to the 50s as opposed to the 60s that we had earlier. It's going to rain, and then the rain's going to turn into a beautiful, partly cloudy day on Sunday, 51 degrees and a low of 40. today. And then taking a look at Monday and Tuesday, Monday is full of sun. We're getting back to the mid-50s at this point, but then that's going to be replaced by all the clouds and it's going to be overcast on Tuesday, but a high of 55. So I guess we'll take that spring weather where we can. That's all for today's weather report. Coming back after the break, Brooks Steak has the latest in sports.
Welcome back to PSN News. I'm Brooke Stake with your sports update. Despite falling short of a Big Ten team title, Penn State Wrestling is heading to Detroit for the annual NCAA Wrestling Championships on Thursday. Penn State is sending 9 of its 10 wrestlers. Nittany Lions' Roman Bravo Young, Nick Lee, and Carter Strachey will all serve as the top-seeded wrestlers in their weight classes. Max Dean, who won his first Big Ten championship last week, but did not wrestle a year ago, is also at the top seed at 179 pounds. Penn State's Drew Hildebrandt at 125 pounds and Brady Berge at 157 pounds are both seated at the number 16 spot. The NCAA Wrestling Championships kick off on Thursday at noon for the Nittany Lions at Little Caesars Arena in Detroit. Vice President for Intercollegiate Athletics Sandy Barber announced her retirement this morning. Barber plans to finish her career in athletics this summer. Barber worked over 40 years as a collegiate administrator and coach while serving 8 years at Penn State since 2014. Throughout her time at Penn State, varsity teams have won 6 NCAA championships and 39 conference championships. During the ongoing coronavirus pandemic, Barber was also the co-chair of the medical subcommittee on the Big Ten's return to competition task force. Tom Brady has decided to come back for his 23rd season in the NFL and his 3rd season with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. After Brady announced his retirement on February 1st, the 3-time MVP quarterback posted to his social media accounts on Sunday that he is returning to play on the field. Brady said, quote, "These past 2 months I have realized my place is still on the field and not in the stands. That time will come, but it's not now," end quote. Brady has won 7 Super Bowls, winning 5 Super Bowl MVPs. That's all for your sports update. After the break, Jaso Bardo has the latest updates from the world of entertainment. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to PSN News. I'm Jaso Bardo with your entertainment update. Paisley Rechtel is visiting Penn State this week as the Fisher family writer-in-residence. Rechtel is an award-winning essayist and poet who has had her work featured on many platforms like the New York Times Magazine, American Poetry Review, and National Public Radio. During her 1-week stint at Penn State, Rechtel will give a free public reading on March 17th at 7:30 in the Paterno Library's Foster Auditorium. The free reading will be in person, but it will also be available as a live stream via Zoom. Those interested in attending virtually must register in advance. Funny man Bert Kreischer will be making an appearance at the Bryce Jordan Center on April 10th as part of his headlining stand-up comedy tour, the Birdie Boy Relapse Tour. Kreischer stopped in State College as part of the second leg of his massively successful tour that was rescheduled to 2021 due to the pandemic. In addition to being a comedian, Kreischer is also an author and host of his podcast, The Bertcast. Tickets to see the Triple Threat live are currently on sale at Ticketmaster starting at $39.75. There are also a limited number of tickets for Penn State University Park students being sold for just $20, courtesy of the Penn State Student Fee Board. Those who buy student tickets must present a valid University Park student ID at the door. The Batman, the newest Batman installment in the DC Universe, is on track to reach a major milestone of $500 million in the global box office. After just 10 days in theaters, the film brought in a total of $463 million globally, with $238.5 million coming from North America alone. Ticket sales are expected to rise as the film opens in China this Friday. The action-packed movie was directed by Matt Reeves and features an all-star cast with Twilight's Robert Pattinson as Batman and Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman. The 3-hour-long film follows Batman through the underworld of Gotham City as he tries to catch a sadistic killer and bring justice to the corruption and abusive power that has taken over the city for years. The Batman is still in theaters and will be available to stream on HBO Max starting April 19th. That's all for your entertainment update. After the break, interview anchor Paloma Front will be speaking with Professor Will Yerman, who recently joined Penn State students and faculty in their trip to Scotland. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to PSN News. I'm Paloma Freund. This spring break, 25 Penn State students and 4 faculty members embraced their work in journalism and took it to an international level. The group of young journalists and professors prepared all semester long and finally traveled to Scotland to do quality reporting for long-form journalism. Professor Yerman was one of the professors who participated in this incredible experience. Thank you so much for coming in.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
So tell me, what does the international reporting class consist of?
So it's a class that's been around probably a dozen years. It was started by a professor who's now retired, Tony Barbieri, and now it's run by Professor O'Toole. And it's a semester-long class where students spend spring break in a country reporting as journalists. So they spend the first half of the semester preparing, learning about the country, and then finding stories. And then they spend a week reporting, and then they come back and write or edit video or edit photos, depending on what format they've used.
So what does the work, I know you just mentioned it a little bit, what does the work consist of before going to Scotland? Do they pick out their stories beforehand, their sources, or does that work take place?
Yeah, as much preparation as they can do, the better it is when they get in country. So they're learning about the country. So part of the first half of the semester is studying, in this case, about Scotland. And then they're finding stories that are relevant and interesting and doable in a week. So there's a lot to consider. And they're trying to line up interviews, line up sources, figure out how they're going to approach things. And then inevitably, when they get in country, things change. And that's part of the process of being a journalist. So how do you adapt? How do you find new sources? How do you change direction? How do you, all of that is part of the experience of being an international reporter.
What kind of stories did the students come up with?
It was a real range this year. So there's a couple of stories on immigration and refugees. Someone's doing a piece on Brexit. Someone's doing a piece on the cuisine of Scotland and how it's been impacted by immigration. A story on how haunted the country is, or at least by reputation, and why is that true. A story about how it's become a place for a lot of TV and movies to be filmed. So when we were there, they were filming, we think, one of the Batman sequels in Glasgow. Yeah.
That's so cool. You just mentioned such a diverse group of ideas, from hauntings to cuisine to Brexit. That's really amazing that they are able to come up with such unique ideas and create such unique stories for themselves. So tell me a little bit about your trip. What activities did you guys do while you were there? Even if it's not school related.
Sure, yeah. I mean, there is time to enjoy and sightsee and do that kind of thing, but the priority is students working on their stories. And so the faculty are there to support that. So, for me, it was going to see things like, there's this really incredible, it's called the Wheel, the Falkirk Wheel, that's this, it sort of replaces locks and canals, and it's 115 feet high, and it's the only one of its kind in the world. I went up to a small fishing village with another student. Her story was about how fishing is being impacted by Brexit. We went to a site on the other coast. There are these, they call them wells. They're these little kind of creeks that are, some people think of as sort of holy and special, and so we went to visit one of those. A lot of people, we were based in Edinburgh, which is one of the large cities in Scotland, but a lot of the stories were in Glasgow, so students were hopping trains every day and going back and forth between those cities.
Wow, did they do that independently? Was there always like a professor with them? I know there was a lot more students than there were professors.
Yeah, so that's a juggling act. The rule was you always had to be with someone, but it didn't have to be a professor. So depending on where they were going, it could be 2 or 3 students would coordinate, I've got an interview at 2 and you've got an interview at 4, I'll go with you if you go with me. So we were always sort of juggling to make sure people were safe, but sometimes that involved professors going out and sometimes that involved students just being on their own with other students, always, yeah.
I was also thinking, I know that, I mean, it seems like in this recent spring break, people seemed a lot more comfortable traveling with COVID still being around. I'm wondering, did COVID impact your trip at all? Or did it in the past years? Is this the first time this trip has been able to take place since the pandemic began?
Yeah, so they've taken a couple of years off. They did a project last year on COVID, but they weren't able to travel. So things have gotten a little bit easier, but obviously we're wearing masks on planes, and Scotland is still requiring masks, though that changes, I think, next week. So there was that. We had to prove we were vaccinated. There were some issues with that flying out, and then we had to get tested the day before. We couldn't come back to the States without a negative test. So there was the worry that someone could test positive, and then a professor had to stay with that student, and that would have, obviously been a little bit chaotic. But, for the most part, it all worked out. We got on our planes, everyone made it over, everyone thankfully tested negative, everyone got back okay. So
From every, I've seen so much of, that communication students posted about the trip on social media.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, what was your favorite part of the trip?
I really liked the trip up to this little town called Peter's Head, which was a fishing village. We met just some really nice people. I think, for me, it's just the chance to kind of see I'd never been to Scotland, so you get to meet people and talk to people. I snuck out one morning at sunrise to do a hike and watch the sunrise over Edinburgh, which was fun. But it's also just fun watching students work. Like, it's just fun to sit back and watch them interview and kind of learn those skills and figure all of that out. So yeah, it was the whole package.
So you say it's your first time in Scotland. Did you take part in any Penn State trip like this in the past, or was this your first year?
Yeah, I've been on, so Katie runs the class, and then she invites, it kind of rotates other professors to come and support her. So I've been to, Israel, Cuba, Puerto Rico with her, and then with the sports class, I went to Brazil for the Paralympics a few years ago. So yeah, I've had some opportunities to travel, which is great.
And what would you, my last question is, what would you recommend for a student who is planning on doing this trip in the future, or maybe even thinking about it?
I think, you have to be committed to journalism, and you have to show that, you have to gain the experience so that you're prepared to do this kind of reporting. It's not a place to learn the basics. So, being involved in this kind of, thing, you guys are learning those skills, being involved in the Collegian, taking part in the short doc workshop, really challenging yourself in your classes, proving to teachers that you can do the work. There are lots of ways to gain that kind of experience, and then when you apply, it's an application process. So Katie will interview you, Professor O'Toole will interview you, and make choices based on who has the most experience and who's showing kind of the most passion. So it's being prepared. It's preparing yourself for this kind of, for a lot of students, it's sort of a culmination. It's mostly seniors, so it's sort of the end of their 4 years of learning.
It's really interesting how you say that it is an application process, because it really shows that the students that do get there, they, like you said, they put in the work, and
Absolutely.
they really do care about their major and want to grow in the industry. So I'm happy that it is that way.
Yeah, they've earned the opportunity to go, and that's what you need to do if you want to be part of it.
Thank you so much for coming in and letting us know about this incredible opportunity that Penn State offers to students. The College of Communications is able to give students this opportunity. It seems like an amazing learning chance. Up next, we're going to have Aidan and Abby with the latest news happening across the nation. Join us after the break.
Gabby Petito's parents are now suing Brian Laundrie's parents, as Laundrie allegedly told his parents that he killed Petito before returning home. The lawsuit has been filed in Sarasota County Circuit Court. Petito family believes that Laundrie told his parents about the murder of his then-fiancée on August 28, 2021. Petito's body wasn't found until September 19th of 2021 in Wyoming. The lawsuit also claims that the Laundrie family was trying to find a way to get their son out of the country. The Petitos are seeking $30,000 in damages. Stephen Bertolino, the attorney of the Laundries, states, quote, "The Laundries had no obligation to speak to law enforcement or any third party, including the Petito family," end quote. He also labels the Petito claims as baseless under the law.
On Sunday, Ukraine's energy minister Herman Galushenko said the power supply has been restored at the Chernobyl power plant. Since late February, the plant has been occupied by Russian forces. International Atomic Energy Agency Director Rafael Mariano Grossi received a letter from the plant operator revealing 400 Russian soldiers were present at full time at the site. During their occupation, the forces disconnected outside electricity from the plant. While trying to restore power, workers suffered physical and psychological fatigue. Galushenko called on the EU, the United Nations, and the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe to help protect Ukraine nuclear facilities.
The Texas Supreme Court has shut down a federal challenge to the state's abortion law that bans abortion after 6 weeks of pregnancy. The Texas law in question offers $10,000 in rewards for anyone that files a lawsuit against someone that abides a woman who gets an abortion after the 6 weeks. This Texas law goes against the 1973 federal ruling Roe v. Wade and stops states from banning abortions. However, the Texas law known as SB 8 is not subject to judicial review because state officials are not enforcing the law. SB 8 puts the power in everyday citizens. Last Friday, the Texas Supreme Court of all Republican judges ruled state officials cannot be sued for this law because they aren't enforcing it. SB 8 could have huge ramifications, and Texas encourages other states to pass a similar bill.
On Friday, the U.S. Treasury Department announced sanctions against Russian companies Apollon, ZealM, and RK Breeze. These sanctions block all access to U.S. assets held by these companies. This action follows North Korea's most recent testing of the largest intercontinental ballistic missile. A U.S. Department of State spokesman condemned the launch as a violation of the United Nations Security Council resolutions. The missile launched from the international airport in Sunan and failed immediately. Debris from the launch fell around Pyongyang after the failed launch. The South Korean Defense Ministry also detected that the regime was restoring tunnels at its nuclear testing sites that were destroyed in 2018. That concludes our show tonight at PSN News.
Be sure to check us out on Twitter and Facebook at PSN News, on Instagram at Penn State News Network, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/PSN News.
Have a good night and stay safe, Penn State.